especially our speaker who is doing her second presentation with us. I'd like to remind us all that the purpose of the Rastafari reasoning is to discuss, to consult, and act together in focused exchanges of ideas, thoughts, views, knowledge, comment on specific problems, and their considered views on courses of action to best follow in dealing with the world, to help come to terms with history, politics, economics, education, so we don't repeat past errors. And instead of always trying to catch up with the world, the Rastafari reasoning seeks to stimulate creative thinking. So, my lords and empresses, we thank you all for joining us tonight. Tonight, we have a presentation from Dr. Scheril, Empress Scheril More Powell. And Esquire, Empress is a lawyer. She is the president of the EWF. Yes, I think the headquarters of EWF in New York. She's the president. She'll tell us more about herself. For those of us who will be attending Empress lectures for the first time, she has been part of our regular Rastafari National Cannabis Conference, giving us a lot of support in our cannabis conferences. Today, and as we make attempts to mark our 5th National Cannabis Conference, we thought it prudent to invite Empress to speak on the topic, the evolution of Black or African efforts to abandon cannabis prohibition. So, my lords and empresses, I hereby invite Empress Scheril to lead the conversation. So, Empress, we give thanks.
Yes, give thanks, Ross Kofi. It's always good to be with the Rastafari Council of Ghana. As mentioned, my name is Scheril Murray Powell, Esquire. I'm not sure if there's a chaplain on that can lead us with an opening devotion or prayer, if that's appropriate. Ross Kofi, I'll let you determine that. Is that appropriate at this time for one of our chaplains to lead us in our opening devotion?
Yes, Empress, please. Raz Benai, can you give us an opening? Yes.
Yes.
Or can anybody give us an opening devotion?
Yes. Let me see who's on.
Yes. Can anybody? All right. Rasbenia is in the
deal with it.
All right, give thanks. We held the Most High last year, Rastafari. We give thanks for I gathering tonight. We ask that the words of I mouth and the meditations of I heart be acceptable in their sight. I strength and redeemer, Most High Rastafari.
Rastafari.
So, Empress, I think a chaplainess joined.
Okay, we have our chaplainess has joined. Do you want her to continue the devotion?
Yes, please. If that's
yes, that would be lovely. Give thanks.
Yes,
life
Empress.
Balance. That's
Chaplainess.
God's will.
Greetings, Rastafari. Sorry.
Last year. Please help us with an open devotion before the press does a presentation.
Greetings, Rastafari.
Highly blessed.
So last year, I just literally woke up, so I can do it the closing later. I don't mind.
That's not a problem, chaplainess. Thank you for joining from Local 3, chaplainess. Good to have you on. We just had a opening devotion. Since you joined, we were going to give you the opportunity, but it's not a problem. Ja is with us. I'll just go ahead and start with my introduction at this time. So my name is Scheril Murray Powell, Esquire. I'm a cannabis agricultural dietary supplement trade psychedelics regulatory and immigration attorney. I've been practicing cannabis law for 11 years. This is my 11th year, I should say. So 10 full years. And, it's where I live, work, and play. It's something I'm very passionate about. I write standards for the world with regards to, and I started that work as a part of a committee for the Jamaica Bureau of Standards. So that, working with the Bureau of Standards in Jamaica, and that's how I was connected to ASTM, and now I'm on the executive committee for ASTM D37 on cannabis. I've recently been appointed the executive director for Patients Out of Time, which is the longest serving patient advocacy or pretty much advocacy organization in cannabis that gave CMEs for medical education. So it's an honor to pick up that mantle as well. They've been doing this work for 30 years. I've been on their board for 6 years. And then now I'm transitioning from board member to the executive director, driving the strategy for Patients at a Time, which will be a global strategy in a way that we haven't seen before. As mentioned, I'm the international president for the Ethiopian World Federation Incorporated. The Ethiopian World Federation Incorporated is a gift to us from His Imperial Majesty to give us an identity, citizenship, and a relationship with the African continent for those of us in the diaspora. We're well aware that His Imperial Majesty created the OAU for the African continent for unity. So there's one Africa, and to strengthen not only trade and commerce, but independence on the continent. And then to the diasporans throughout the world, we gave the Ethiopian World Federation Incorporated. So this is not a responsibility that I take lightly. And I understand more and more each day the vision that His Imperial Majesty had for us to come together with those brothers and sisters on the African continent. And we're demonstrating that today. I am Rastafari for many years. Rastafari is near and dear to me. I spent a lot of my work in cannabis focused on, sacramental rights and moving that forward on from a global perspective, the understanding of what it means to have ganja as a holy sacrament, how that impacts and influences the need for Rastafari to own the chain of custody for sacramental use, understanding how sacramental use by Rastafari is similar and distinct from other indigenous cultures such as Native Americans, Hindu culture, but also, having us unite around the concept of the sacramental use of the plant. I'm a UNIA member. I know there's some members who are UNIA members on. I am a member of the UNIA Philadelphia, the Philadelphia unit, and I've been a part of the Brooklyn and Queens unit as well. So I believe in the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey's his vision as well as His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie. And in fact, I was just walking past on my way to this basketball game for my son. I walked by the Harlem Hospital, which is an area of land where we used to own it as the UNIA. So that whole block belonged to the UNIA. We had stores, we had our own hospitals, we had our own dry cleaners, we had our own restaurants, we had our own hotels. And now, a lot of it is now what we call the Harlem Hospital. In addition, across the street from the Harlem Hospital is the Schomburg Museum. The Schomburg Museum holds a lot of our archives for Rastafari, as well as the Ethiopian World Federation, as well as Black Hebrew Israelites, as well as the UNIA. And Dr. Arturo Schomburg, Black man of Puerto Rican descent, who was the founder, he actually was an Ethiopian World Federation Incorporated member, and he was a member of our educational committee And he actually heard directly, there are letters that I found online directly between him and Princess Dorothy Bayen, uh, Dr. Melaku Bayen's wife, all co-founder of the Ethiopian World Federation Incorporated, inviting him to the Education Committee meeting. So, being in Harlem, living here, the roots are strong with regards to where His Imperial Majesty has been and where he's walked, and how he uh, stretched out his vision across the world. So that's really important for you to know the context of how things come together, especially here in New York City, just as things come together when we are on the continent in Ethiopia and Ghana, Togo, Senegal, all South Africa, all over the continent. His Imperial Majesty's impact and influence is felt all over. And in fact, my office, where I work out of, typically is on Broadway, and Exchange. You can call it really Broadway and Thames. And right there in front of my office, there's a plate on the ground commemorating His Imperial Majesty's visit to the United States in 1954. So I didn't realize that when I selected that place for my work, but right there, that's where His Imperial Majesty walked when they had the Ticker Day parade to welcome him to the United States. And then 2 blocks down, by the train station that I use when I'm coming to work, is another plaque in the ground which commemorates his visit from 1963. So he is all around us always, especially as we do this work of the OAU, now the AU, the Ethiopian World Federation Incorporated, Rastafari, even the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church. And for those who are observers and consider themselves to be Orthodox, please accept our warmest Easter greetings. So happy Easter. As you know, the Orthodox calendar is different from the Gregorian calendar. So today is Easter for all of our observers in Ethiopia and the Asiatic Orthodox faiths, as they call them. So, again, we feel the presence of Ethiopia always, regardless of where we are in the world. And we feel His Imperial Majesty as well. So with that said, I want to start digging into the topic at hand. So this topic is about, the African impact and influence on prohibition. So when you talk about when I was thinking about this topic, I wanted to really talk about it in 3 phases when we're talking about prohibition. The first phase has to do with the evangelism and migration. So when we look at the evangelism and migration, I like to say that we are everywhere and we have been everywhere. So when you look at what is now known as Asia, North America, South America, African people have been there before the Europeans even considered or discovered these places. So that's an important context for this conversation about, our movement against prohibition, because the first movement against prohibition was an offensive movement. It wasn't a defensive movement. We were on the offense because as we were migrating, we were taking our seeds and our genetics with us as African people. One of my members, Rasa Bib, and he may be joining us in a little bit. He does a great talk about the Congo and how not only does Rastafari have Congolese ties, and it's part of the origin story of Rastafari, how we wear our locks, etc., but also as far as like the plant, the ganja plant, and use of the plant. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the various uses of this plant, this mighty plant that is cannabis. For us, it's a holy sacrament. And typically we look at that in terms of consumption. However, this plant has over 50,000 uses. And with Ghana legalizing and now making licenses available for industrial hemp, the government is encouraging us to look at these industrial uses. And I'm in agreement with the industrial uses, but we cannot forget that it's also medicinal. So let's talk about that. So it has medicinal value, which again is tied to consumption or topical use traditionally. When we look at as far as construction materials, I think that's also medicinal because you want to have a healthy environment. And the cannabis plant, even in low THC varieties, and especially in low THC varieties, can be used for soil remediation, but it can also remediate the environment. So if there are toxins in your environment, building and constructing homes and structures out of hemp allows it to take out of the environment anything that is toxic and dangerous to you. And I want to use anything, I don't want to use it too loosely, but it's been proven that building hemp homes will allow you to extract things that are not healthy for you. So that is another way to look at the medicinal use that African people were very much aware of over time. Looking at water purification. Again, I'm talking about the first offensive phase. The first offensive phase has to do with discovery, which is why I'm talking about the uses. Water purification. The plant can be used to purify water, purify streams. It's been shown to do so. As far as regenerative agriculture, regenerative farming, crop rotation, using the plant and planting hemp in between cycles, planting cannabis in between cycles will purify and clean the soil. That is also healthy medicinal use. And again, I'm looking at medicinal from a very broad perspective, but that's why it's our sacrament. We don't tend to look at cannabis in the buckets of medicinal, recreational. All of the sacramental uses, whether they're industrial or for consumption or for topical use, are healthy and sacramental because it's a gift to us by the Almighty for us to use to have healthier, more full lives. And then you also look at its sustainability properties. It is extremely sustainable. The Great Wall of China, we've had our own Great Wall that, due to invasion has been destroyed, but no, the Great Wall of China is made from hemp, and you can still see it from space. So that's one, view as far as the sustainable properties of it. But also when you look at the sustainability of the planet, it's important to understand the role that cannabis plays. When you're talking about making, using timber for, let's say, wood laminate, so, flooring, or for textiles, or for paper, your use of cannabis, the time that it takes to grow cannabis to produce these materials is a fraction of the time that it would need if it were a regular tree. A tree can take 20 years to reach full maturity. So when you chop down a tree, you're chopping down that opportunity, and then you have to start over. Whereas when you're using hemp for these materials, again, textiles, rope, building materials, wood laminate, flooring, etc., your cycle for production is greatly increased. And at the same time, as mentioned, you're purifying the soil. And at the same time, you're purifying the air, and you're also creating what is known as carbon credits to counter the carbon footprint, increasing carbon footprint for nations as they have industrialized. And this is a really important point because countries are now coming up with their plans around carbon sequestering and trying to be in the posture of capturing carbon credits that exceed their carbon usage so that they can be sold and be a commodity for sale. I just came across the plan for Ethiopia with regards to carbon sequestering using green spaces, not cannabis, but using green spaces to sequester carbon so that they can counter their carbon footprint, but in a way that they have a surplus of carbon credits, which can be monetized. So we are doing a great service to our countries, to our communities, to mankind when we are planting cannabis. So again, this is also the offensive approach to countering prohibition, is that discovery of the different types of uses that we have for the plant. The next part of that first phase of being offensive beyond discovery is the education. And Rastafari has done a tremendous job with regards to educating about the uses of cannabis, the health benefits of cannabis despite persecution. And another way we did that is by creating these very sophisticated trade routes around the world so that access to the plant can be expanded. And this is very much strengthened during the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, the establishment of these trade routes. So these trade routes tend to mirror the expansion of Rastafari itself. So as Rastafari grew and became global, we Rastafari in Japan and all over the world, then we would see these trade routes for cannabis mirror that presence of Rastafari people, which also meant that there was a certain amount of generosity that is inherent in Rastafari, where seeds and seed banks were shared around the world. This is another part of that offensive posture. So we talked about discovery, and we're talking about education, and it's through these trade routes that and the growth of Rastafari that we were able to facilitate this education. And this education about cannabis is multi-generational. Where you see this cannabis production happening and this international trade of cannabis is across, multiple generations. And then when in the production, it can be even down to the young children being involved in the process, all the way to the grannies and grandpas and being involved. So it is a family unifying commodity, which is similar to other farmed commodities, but it's very distinct. It's very seasonal, and that's clear with the tie-in as we're approaching the Rastafari ITAL certification. How did we generate and come up with the ceremonies and the traditions associated with every phase of the production process, all the way to consumption? And that's from our African ancestry and influence, but also from the fact that this is multi-generational, and it's not something just of the youth, but there are traditions that are passed on from generation to generations with regards to these ceremonies and rituals that have to do with the plant. So that's where the education comes from, and the education mirrors the expansion of Rastafari itself. So this movement of trade, this movement of and generosity of sharing information, sharing genetics, sharing seeds, sharing plants, and sharing final good products has been strengthened over time, and that's helpful in the prohibition because this information is being shared. So now the next phase is an offensive phase because as we saw this presence grow of I'm going to check to see if it was on, just in case I want to get some insight from someone who's joined. Yeah, so I see Ross Kwasi has joined. Dejasmach Kwasi has joined. So I want to give him an opportunity if he wants to share any information about the this growth of Rastafari, how it influenced this international trade of cannabis with the education and also ensuring that the genetics flowed across the world with their starting point, typically Jamaican community, as well as other parts of the Caribbean and Africa. They're just much Kwasi. I don't know if you have anything that you wanted to add with regards to this first phase, this offensive phase with regards to Rastafari and African approach to prohibition.
Royal greetings.
Blessed love.
Rastafari.
Haile Selassie the first. I'm not sure. Can everyone hear?
Yes, I can hear.
Yes, Ras.
I'm multitasking, so I'm not gonna be able to come on the camera. But yeah, I think the main strategic positioning for Rastafari as it relates to ganja on the continent is a multi-pronged approach. I think that has to start with education. Although we know Africa has a long tradition with the plant, we also know that through the colonial education regime, that there's a lot of misperception and a lot of demonization that has accompanied the plant in the same way that it accompanied the plant in the West. And so I think that is one of the main things that we have to do is in terms of narrative control as we seek to advocate on behalf of the plant, and we have to, of course, big up ones like Ras Aswad and Daddy Bosco and a lot of other ones, elders there who have been fighting the fight from that time until this time. But I think we really need a strategic education campaign that leverages media, leverages accesses to maybe the high schools, universities, leverages also the traditional infrastructure in Africa, where we can interact with the traditional kings, and the traditional power structure on the continent about the benefits of the plant, both spiritually and otherwise, medicinally, and then also the difference between ganja and hemp and what cultivation of both could mean to Africa. Before we start there, though, I think as Rastafari and we began this process, we have to have a strategic vision for ourselves. What does our ownership, what does a sovereign Rastafari food system look like? We're gonna big up Plus Zola, who's our elder out of Guyana by way of Toronto. And he's coined the term Black food sovereignty, and Rastafari food sovereignty. And we quickly realized that although we are all advocates for Black food sovereignty, meaning Black people controlling their food systems from seed to table, that Rastafari would also require our own sovereign food system because of our Ita liberty and because things that may be acceptable to a wider Black food system, for example, it might be okay in a wider food system to transport pigs, on a van back, and the next day that might have vegetables transporting in the same um, transportation, whereas as a rat that might be offensive, um, and so it might not be permissible as from an ITA perspective. The other thing that we realized with GMO and ITA is that you have the potential for contamination with GMO just through nature and pollination, and that we would need to institute ITA zones, meaning that, whether those are 50-mile zones or however many miles scientifically, we were working on different numbers within the standard that these zones would have to be negotiated with African governments that would allow these zones where no GMO could be planted. And in the case of ganja, we also know that we have to have zones where there's no hemp being planted because also the potential of dilution by planting hemp and ganja too close together as well. So in terms of the zoning of what a functional sovereign food system looks like within a nation or country, these are conversations that we need to have with our brethren and sisters on the continent and devise a strategy. Once we have that strategy of what that looks like, then the education campaign, um, where we're leveraging through the arts, through media, through everything, education about the plants and the benefits. There's also the advocacy piece that Ras Aswad has been championing and others there. Food Sovereignty Ghana, I know, and the Ghana Hemp uh, Association has also been championing these efforts to, legislatively recognize, and I know the medicinal, I think, has gone through. So these are things that need to be done from Jamaica perspective. One of the things, I serve as a legal advisor to the RMO, which is the Rastafari Management Organization. One of the things that we recognize is that although Rastafari is global, um, there are certain intellectual properties that stem from the unique uprising that took place in Jamaica. These are intellectual, and IP stands for intellectual property. These intellectual property, for example, words such as IRI, ITAL, words such as liberty, um, these are things that come out of the Jamaican consciousness that have now become global. So in devising this system, we wanted to ensure that there was some level of recognition for Jamaica's contribution globally. And there's, a lot of debate in terms of where Rastafari rose first. So we're not negating other regions that have claims to us. There were ones who gave up their life for Rastafari in Chicago as early as 1919. Of course, Ethiopia had its own movement. His Majesty was revered in Ethiopia long before the West. So, you know, but I think we cannot deny or go around Jamaica's um, attribution. We look at the parable of the sower. When you sow the seeds on fertile ground, there is an explosion that took place in Jamaica. Is that fertile ground that really took the movement global? So, in recognizing that with intellectual property, the RMO engaged on the development of an ITAL standard that would be something akin to the kosher and halal standards. And it's important also to recognize that globally there are multiple boards that issue their own kosher and halal standards. There's not one universal standard. So the RMO recognizes that, other Rastafari groups, there's nothing that can prohibit any other Rastafari group from doing their own thing. But in terms of legitimacy and truth and rights and justice, having the standard secured from Jamaica, historically is, I think the most appropriate movement that prides itself on truth and righteousness. Now, having said that, the RMO also recognized that the knowledge base is also global in terms of Rastafari agronomists, Rastafari farmers, Rastafari one. So the RMO reached out across land and sea and established a subcommittee of the Business Development Committee to, help to put together this ITAL standard. And the first in-person meeting of that subcommittee took place in Ghana at the Quaco Ando Sustainability Institute last October. A historic meeting, which was a culmination of, maybe almost over a year of work virtually. And in that meeting, we went over a technical standard for ganja, according to the ITAL standard, which we're still in the process of finalization, but serves as a great foundation. Once may have seen the series I started on the Lion Voice Network, The Road to Heaven on Earth, that chronicles that historic set of meetings, and that will be coming out. We just dropped the third episode so that one can see this historic movement. But what I say all of that to say that we sit at a crossroads as Rastafari, a crossroads of tremendous opportunity with this war in what they're now calling West Asia, with the Strait of Hormuz, the blocking of over 40% of chemical fertilizer, which comes out of the petroleum industry. What we now see is a tremendous potential opportunity. They're forecasting famine and death for Africa, the same way they did during COVID, where they foretold that there would be body bags in the street during COVID on the continent. And instead, what we saw was Africa becoming probably the most resilient continent, the stone that the builder refused, becoming the head cornerstone. So I see a similar opportunity for us in agriculture with ganja during this next, let's say, 5 to 10 year window with strategic planning. If we can position ourselves with our ITAL standard. And one of the principles, let me say this as well before I turn it forward to Sister Scheril, is one of the key principles that the RMO is standing on is that food and ganja are married, meaning there's no way that I and I as Rastafari should be planting ganja and not planting food at the same time. And this has historical premise because the ganja farmers of old always planted food near their ganja fields, to sustain their families. So now what we're looking at doing is how do we scale this? How do we develop these farms? Because the farms are not just there for the medicinal, but they also provide, opportunities for cultural tourism, for training, um, for content creation. There's a whole host of auxiliary monetization aspects that can accompany the farm. So we want to really develop a comprehensive food system, with Africa being the foundation, from Cape to Cairo, from the River Nile to Timbuktu, ensuring that as Rastafari we control this industry as it relates to I&I, and that you know people know that they can get good, clean ganja from the Rastafari family, and also uh, good, clean hemp products production. These are integrated, working together, and that we are creating unparalleled wealth and prosperity, which would not just be siloed in the Rastafari community, but which would uh, be invested into the communities in which we are embedded, to fulfill the mission of His Imperial Majesty to raise the standard of living for the Black peoples of the world. So for those few words, give thanks. I didn't prepare this presentation, so I'm going off the top of my head for our international president request.
Yes.
So I just
You
will
did
leave it
well.
there. And if there's any questions, I'm on here listening. Give thanks.
Yes, give thanks. We're going to hold the questions till the end. You did well. That's exactly what we needed as far as context. And I'm going to bring you back to talk about, when we're deeper into the defensive talk, about the Rastafari attorneys that you've assembled all around the world as well. So we'll get to that for the defense. But before we go there, I want to acknowledge Daddy Bosco, who's on, who is a great leader. I always want to give him love and support, and show him strength and admiration. And then also Ross Adwad, the same for all that he's done as a repatriate to the continent as Rastafari. So, and I acknowledge them. I'm going to call upon a couple of my elders, because I want to transition us, as we went from the offensive to the defensive, to what was it like for those who have been on this trot for 50 plus years, on this trot to Rastafari. So I'm going to call on Ross Crossdale and Russ Barry Levi, if he can talk about, if either of them can talk about spreading Rastafari all around the world back in the 70s and 80s, and the youth and the zeal. How do you temper that with the conversations about the fact that the herb is our holy sacrament? Brother Barry, are you available to give a few words on that?
Greetings, yes, sure. I wasn't expecting to be called on, but yeah, I can give a perspective, yeah. As ones on ones know, we've been on the trot since, well, I personally, since I guess the age of 16, in America here. And we used to go school here, but not them days there. We get a fight when you go school. Them time they never used to have a lot of Rastafarians. It was sparse and scarce. It's just, few yard man, as we call ourselves. And we used to get a lot of fight going to school, calling not nappy head boy and all of them something there and things like that, So we see it come a long way, that now everyone, Them don't even know about Rastafari, but them have locks on them head and, you know, them pass it on the street, they don't even say heal and anything. But then, you know, and I, as youth, you see a Rasta man, you ever say heal, or the Rasta man say heal youth and, you know, show that respect and show forward the respect. So that is some of the things them that we got through as youth coming up, you know, early 70s, you know, until now, you know what I'm saying? Back then we used to, we couldn't even smoke herb openly, and even in Jamaica too, most places back then we never know, you never used to smoke herb openly. We'd have to, in our little corner, in our park or something, or in our brethren herb camp, and we cook food, reason, and burn herbs. So we see it come a long way, but I had this brethren here, him had a foresight, and he used to say, listen, this weed thing weed become so expensive that we can't afford it. And we little see that the price of it shot up so much after a while, we couldn't believe it. And we never prepare ourselves enough that we could take advantage of all of these things that we see coming down the pike. You know what I'm saying? We always late when things happen. We get caught unprepared. Like now, them legalize it. And I should be like at the forefront because it get mechanized now that even if we was to go into it, we coming like late because we're not together on this industrialization of weed. Because that's what's happened to it now, it get industrialized that we coming in, try to get the foot into the one foot in the door just to be a part of it right now when we was the one who created, make an income out of it. Back then everyone benefit from us selling weed, from the corner shop to the man who sell the yellow envelope what we used to package it into, right? When we're going to the store to buy, the envelope to package it, there could be a line in the store long from inside to outside, but the man they will bring we in front of the line because they don't know what we coming to buy. We never come to buy a stamp or any other postcard or birthday card. We come for one specific thing and they know what we want and them just call it up to the front of the line, sell with them call it Manila envelope. It's a little small envelope. Them time it wasn't plastic bag, it was just a little yellow envelope, and him sell everything and is an industry that I created in America where everybody benefit from a cigarette seller to a beer seller. Them glad when you come and open a little spot for them neighborhood because everybody eat food off of it. And here it is now. We there so get ourselves together and try to see how we can get a foot in at the door now with all of this industrialization of the weed. And it's like we start all over, which we should have done have things together and, I talk about what the next product now we're going to get out of it. Because right now, if we're going to say we're going right now, we already have people who's making hempcrete, they will make hemp block, and they'll make all kind of things out of it. And we just try now to talk about it instead of make it happen. And that is where we need to really get ourselves together so we can do these things instead of just being nostalgic about it and talk about it and all over the world, but yet still we don't have no factory, no nothing. Right here now we should be talking about, well, are we ready to plant a couple acres of hemp now to produce clothing or whatever out of the fibers, where the amount of things we herb can make now. So that is where I think we should really focus instead of, boy, we want to do this and we want to do that. Let's do it. That is, what we should have think right now, brethren and sister. See it. So it's kind of, disheartening to see and hear these things that we are talking about it late because, there is so much millions of dollars make out of it already and still more to make, but we always start out late in doing all of these things. And we just want to say more things happening, more boots on the ground, more work. You know what I'm saying? We have people all over the world now, which, if it's land, we can grow it here, grow it there, and produce. So we need to produce. Them say the herb seed is one of the most nutritious seed, we can use as food. We should have a warehouse full of herb seed right now that we can supply, stores and make oil outside. We should have been producing already things instead of just talking about it right now and dreaming about it and all of that in the virgin and sister. And that is where my iris is right now. We're coming from, we used to buy one bag, right? We roll out 10 spliff out of it, or 20 spliff, and make $20. And then after that, we can go buy 2 more bag, come back again, make 30 spliff till we reach up to 1 pound. That is how we used to hustle in America. You start from 1 nickel bag. Me know that for a fact when man start out from 1 nickel bag until him can buy all 10 pound with the 1 nickel bag then. So which part we ability go? Where it gone? Those people not here now, just a whole heap of different people in it now who said them a herb seller and them this and that, which now it's got them gone synthetic with it now. You don't even know which is real or what. You have to be careful now where you buy and them thing you can't buy from everybody because everybody on the street, everybody are do it. And we know who start this whole revolution, and not saying me because when we come, other people that do it, but you can't just find them. You have to know somebody who knows somebody and then carry you go film place and you can get a little draw on them thing, the virgin and sister. And Sister Emma know about them thing because she's like a rock stone tonight and enough other ones here know it too. See it. So we need to just stop talk about it and let's start to produce because we always come late to the table with things which we are the one who prepare the food, but other ones eat it. You know what I say? So we need to just stop with the whole heap of rhetoric and all heap of talk and let's start produce and get industrialized about it. I don't know if that helped a lot, but that is my contribution.
That's what I was looking for. So, talking about transition from the offensive where we were planting, different mansions of Rastafari around the world, and then encountering the zeal and enthusiasm wherever we planted these new mansions with the youth and the education that had to take place with the youth as far as really understanding ganja as the holy sacrament. But as you spoke to the education around how it can be used to drive commerce, not only commerce for Rastafari, but commerce for the surrounding community. So in a sense, what Rastafari was doing as we expanded was creating an ecosystem, an economic ecosystem, through utilizing what is holy and reverenced by us as our holy sacrament as a profit center, and doing that up until we ran up against the prohibition. Some things that I want to call out and what our chaplain of Local 12 said, Brother Barry, is he said, one, it started with us. And that's why I wanted to talk about the migration first and the Congo and how, and again, a lot of these brethren and sisters were youth themselves spreading Rastafari. They are in their 20s, early 20s, somewhere in their teens and traveling around the world. So just talking about that aspect of when you get somewhere, the education that had to take place as far as not only is this something for spiritual heights and that we indulge in, but we reverence it as a sacrament. And it's also given to us by Jah as a tool that can be utilized. Brother Barry also spoke about the fact that we shouldn't be left behind, but we're not going to mourn that and talk about it any longer. We're going to move to a position where we're setting up institution. And with this legalization happening in Ghana, there's an opportunity for us to really embrace what they are legalizing, which is industrial hemp as a touch point, cornerstone, starting ground, and plant, and still with our trade routes that we've had established from early days of Rastafari through the plant, through ganja, use those same trade routes to move what is legal, the industrial hemp to start, and then our other indigenous medicines around the world and really solidify and strengthen that trade. So I just wanted to highlight a few things of from this discussion. I tend to like to curate discussion more than just talk myself. And these are my respected elders who I learned from as well that I'm introducing into the call. And I think as Rastafari, we should know each other and get to know each other better. So I did mention that Ross Crossdale, who's our first elected member for the Ethiopian World Federation, but also did a substantial work with regards to 12 tribes of Israel and the spread. When I went to England and Manchester, 12 tribes headquarters, they were mentioning him, Ross Mikey, as helping them get started and things like that. So the pioneer trailblazers of Rastafari had a number of things they had to solidify when they started a new home or mansion HQ in a country. So there's the education about what is Rastafari. There's the education about how you carry yourself as Rastafari. There's the education about our holy sacrament. And then there's the conversation about creating commerce outside of legal constructs, but also creating commerce outside of employment or funding outside of employment, because that's where they tried to cut us off. Our independence was in the entrepreneurial side of things. And then also the spirituality of how do we worship, how do we participate in Isis, what are our own cultural rituals. So every time a new landing point for Rastafari emerged, all that education had to take place. And it wasn't in a manual that was given. It was from ancient tradition, often orally passed and orally and in Isis in song, also in shadowing and role modeling. That's how we passed our culture from Jamaica to throughout the entire world. So I just wanted to recognize that this is a part of the conversation about the anti-prohibition movement that we as Rastafari have been on since our inception. Brother Crossdale, I don't know if you want to add to what Brother Barry said with regards to that spread of the movement and starting from new with the enthusiastic, zealous, passionate, devoted young Rastafari in every place where Rastafari landed. Ross Crossdale?
Blessed love, Madam President.
Yes, blessed love.
I'm going to turn my camera on. If let me see if I'm able to. Can you see me?
Yes, Ross.
Yes, you're being seen and heard. Blessed love.
All right, I'm going to turn this around. Can you see the product? Yes.
We only play in the selected speeches.
Okay, I had mistake there. Mistake by me. Let me see if I
Yeah,
can turn this around.
you have to remove your background and then.
I'm not able to do it. So you can see first of all, this is the envelope that he was talking about.
No, we
See that?
can't see you because we
Just
think
put it in front
you
of
have
you. Just
a
hold it up and put it
background
in
set
front of
up.
the camera. Hold it up and put it in front of you. Yeah. We see it. Hold
Can
it
you
up.
see it now?
No, you're going off again. You can remove your background.
Let me see if I
Off
can.
your background.
And maybe an option under video for you where you can remove your
Press the
background.
camera. Press the camera and just go to virtual background and press none. Press your camera. Click on your camera. All right, it got
Can you see me now?
yeah. All right, you can hold up. Yeah, we
All
see
right.
it now.
Now, this is the envelope that he was talking about. We used to buy these by the cases. So I know exactly what he was talking about. But he was referring to about manufacturing and we should be doing certain things. These are all products that are made from ganja, cannabis, and all other herbs that are beneficial. As you can see, I'm in a herbal spot. Herbs. These containers are filled with herbs. These are all filled with herbs that have been processed already. These are tinctures. These are beneficial for the body. Beneficial. This is what I call balance. This can eliminate certain ailments that I was told not to specify, but this balances your body to what the Almighty made it to be. It's hot sauce. Hot sauce again. Bitters to balance the body. THC extract, high impact collective. This is from the mastermind class that we went to in Boston. This name came from that class. This is also my company's name, Rastafari Holistics. This one here is made called Zebekiah. The label is not put on as yet because I still haven't received the label yet. This is for my brethren that pass. That's him right there. I'm gonna go close so that you can see him. That's Ras Zebi, elder to I and I. He's the one that did all this work in this beautiful place here. He has passed, and I'm here holding it down for him. At the same token, making sure that Rastafari's legacy is not thrown aside. Now, all these products here are available on sale at this location. It can be ordered and can be delivered through the mail to anyone that wishes to purchase. So the fact that Barry said that we were left out, no, yeah, we're left out by them, but we're still been doing our thing behind the scenes. We're never in their circle. They never prepared anything for us in that legalization of cannabis. It's not there for us. So we went in and we spoke to the Cannabis Authority with the aid of Scheril, Attorney Scheril, which is a powerful source for the Rastafari community. She is a serious advocate for the balance of justice. Well, the opportunity is here for us to make that difference, really and truly. We have been put aside, yes, marginalized, yes, but the opportunity still exists if we only organize and centralize with the organization that is doing it right now, which is the Ethiopian World Federation, to be honest with you. That governmental entity, which is the umbrella for all Rastafari organizations, all mansions worldwide. That is a tool that Haile Selassie gave to us, gave that tool to us that we can save ourselves from annihilation. It's a serious, serious issue, Latina. Very serious issue. But the chance is here. The dialogue is now.
The actions is before us. You understand? Let us utilize it. Please let us utilize it. These things that I'm speaking of, it is to remember those that have been on the work of Rastafari that didn't do it for pay from Babylon or anyone. They did it for pay from the Almighty God. You understand? And that pay, it is not man going to give you that pay. It is life eternal, as the Most High God stated unto us. We're not here for Babylon's liberty. We're here for our liberty. We're here to correct the injustice that was done on the earth. That is what we're here to do. And the tool, as I said before, it is the Ethiopian World Federation. Take up your mantle, beloved, and let us do this thing together.
Yes,
Rastafari.
Rastafari bless. Yeah, I love. Thank you for showing the products, because these centers, these hubs, were considered they were called cultural destinations. And I'll let our beloved Empress Ima, who's loved as much in Ghana as she is in the United States, they were called cultural destinations where Rastafari would organize and centralize around the plant as an act against prohibition. In order to facilitate this type of dialogue, we had to be how as Black people, we are raised that you have to be 10 times better than everyone else. This was especially true for these cultural destination centers. You saw the sanitary standards of the facility that was just shown to you. We had to make sure there weren't any fire risks, any health risks, anything that would bring attention to the locations, so we can limit our exposure. So we were and are excellent business professionals. As we transition into the legal side, it's still going to be true that our standards with regards to sanitation, staying on top of our education and our compliance, everything needs to be above board so that we can continue. With regards to the Ghana-U.S. trade of indigenous products, I'd like to have Empress Ima speak about that, who was the first Rasta woman to visit Ghana, to be in Ghana back in 1975. Last year was her 50th anniversary for her tour there. With regards to the Ethiopian World Federation and the relationship with the Rastafari Council of Ghana, it gives me so much joy how we are working together. Just for an example, the Rastafari Council of Sierra Leone, which is a part of the broader enterprise, is also a Ethiopian World Federation incorporated local. So, we acquiesce to the growth strategy, the expansion strategy of the Rastafari Council of Ghana, Sierra Leone. I know Rastadi Bosco has a plan with regards to expansion. We could probably include the Rastafari Society of Kenya and continue that growth and expansion and strengthening with having a constitution, having policies, having regular meetings. And then the Ethiopian World Federation has been a substantial overlay with regards to that, further strengthening both bodies. And we're going to continue in that respect, because His Imperial Majesty, he never would have left us one answer. He's left us many routes. Just as far as his departure, he went into a church and they thought there was one way out, but he knew better than that. And with us, to Brother Crossdale's point about, we're in place to prevent the annihilation of our people. His Imperial Majesty didn't give us one way out. He's given us many tools, and he's given us each other. But Empress Ima, she may be at a farmers conference in Rochester, but I don't know if she can come on. But I'd like her to share just some information about those trade routes, not the detail that would incriminate anyone, but about how significant the trade routes were for strengthening the notoriety of Rastafari, our independence through trade, and our ability to be self-sustainable. Empress Ima, are you able to come off to talk about those things?
Greetings, President. How are you today?
Greetings, Empress Ima. It's good to hear your voice.
Yes, I'm actually, I just walked in the door. I'm coming from a Black Farmers Conference. And first I want to say is that as Rastafari, I want to be truthful. We haven't come out of prohibition yet. Because if we are the first people that sell the cannabis and all over the world, they know us for cannabis, why are we so quiet now? Now that it's illegal, why are we so quiet? Like we're waiting for somebody to give us something when they've never given us anything. We have to be vocal. Today I saw Daddy Bosco. I was at a Black Farmers Conference in Ithaca, New York. So it was Black farmers of New York, but people were there from California, Tennessee, New York, Virginia. I mean, they were there from all over, mostly Black women, but it was well cross section. Yes. So a Black Farmers Conference, and there's no workshop or nobody talking about cannabis. Till today was the third day, and they just thought I was an old lady sitting in the corner. But today, I said, well, how could you have a conference of Black farmers and you're not talking about cannabis? When I know that in that very audience, there were cannabis people there. But like we are still got that stigma. I never had the stigma, but we still got that. We are accepting that stigma so we don't bring it up. When it's $1 billion industry, we have to demand our place. And yeah, we always had products. These products aren't new. We've always made products. But now we're more quiet. We're more quiet. And the unity, the lack of unity amongst our Black people, the lack of unity is what is our problem. That is why we have plenty of ideas. We know how to talk real good. We've been educated real good. And we're just too quiet. And we're not taking it. We're not demanding our place. Nobody's going to give us anything. We were and are at the front of the line, not the back of the line. We acting like we at the back of the line. We made this. Yes, I know you said don't incriminate anybody, but Ghana, yes, I was the first Rasta woman in Ghana, and they called it trading, or they had another word for it, but it was trade. We took it from one place, yep, and we took it to another place. And this is how we made our money. Why are we not doing that now? Why are we letting somebody else be in the front? We're supposed to come. I mean, the president has called us to events before, cannabis events. We're supposed to come in there 200-300 strong. Right. So they have to deal with us. Not 2-3 people, 4 or 5 people. And like we're waiting for somebody else to take the lead amongst us, yes, and let them do all the work. And then we're going to come and say, oh, well, I was there. I was there. No, I was there. That's why I went to that conference. Yes, because we have to step up. We can't be quiet. We have to support. We have a president now, Federation, give thanks and praises. Yes. Who is a cannabis advocate? We should be pushing her. Yes. We should be standing like bodyguards when she goes to a place. Right. When she's traveling, we should be transporting her. Now she got to get on a bus. What do we look like? We're joking. We have to step up. That's what we have to do. We have to step up and step out. And if it's called shit or get off the pot. That's what time it is. Yeah, so, President, that's what I got to say today.
No, give thanks. No, that's very helpful. I know you've been instrumental in, solidifying that love for Rastafari, especially in Ghana, South Africa, other places where you've lived. And you helped us see what the possibilities are and the potential, and your love is contagious for Ghana. And I've been to Ghana twice without you and once with you. And going with you is definitely my preference because everybody loves Mama Ima, and because of what you've done and what you continue to do. So thank you for that.
Okay,
We
one
can't
more
talk.
thing, President. Just one
We
more
can't.
thing.
Okay.
At
Yes.
the conference, I want to mention this because it's real important. There was a table, a couple of tables down from me, and they had seeds, different seeds, not cannabis seeds at the table, but they had different seeds, right? And they had seed books. They had books that were written about Black farmers internationally, right? So it was started. The seed company was started many years ago by a Black woman. Yes, she had 80 acres of land in Virginia, right? So the sister that was talking, she said that the young white people, yes, they're waiting for her to die. Right. They've gotten the majority now. They moved in and sort of got the majority of the company. And they're just waiting for her to die to take over the company, a Black company, yes, and take over the 80 acres of land. And we know from history that pink people steal our stuff and never say that it's ours. They claim it for themselves. And what she said at the thing is that wasn't about money. It was about us coming in as people, so we could be the majority. Yes. So with that, I am going to be posting about this seed company in different places because we need to save it. We need to save that seed company, keep it amongst ourselves, and that's how it is. And the land, 80 acres of land. Virginia is legal. That's all, President. Thank you.
Yeah, give thanks. That's very important. It ties directly into RMO's strategy with global Black sovereignty, global Black food sovereignty movement. So let's tie that in with Ross Kwasi, Ross Zola, and others, so that we can see if we can. Brother Duran in where's he in Georgia? I think. See if we can come up with a strategy to save the land as well as that seed bank, and make it ours, because that would give us a head start on the plan that we already have. When Daddy Bosco and Ross Jason and Brother Kwasi, we all met in at Kasi. That was our strategy, is around getting this seed bank, but multiple for contingency having. Duran is also in Virginia, so that's perfect. Um, Having contingency seed banks all around the world. So this can be a gift from Jah for us to be at a head start with these heirloom seeds. So thank you for doing the research. And that's why representation is important, and being everywhere that agriculture is happening is important. But going back to the defensive phase, we can't talk about the defense against prohibition without talking about what prohibition was and what it looked like for us as Rastafari. What prohibition looked like for us as Rastafari was um, some fear, especially as our families grew and we had children involved and women involved. I know the Lions, had that as a consideration with their every movement. The prohibition looked like incarceration, people losing their freedoms, not for like days, but oftentimes for decades, due to these sophisticated trade routes that we have created for commerce, and sometimes just for one spliff, you could lose your freedom for decades. Institutionalization. There were many Rastafari around the world that have been committed to mental institutes just because of either their use of ganja or their belief in His Imperial Majesty, or the fact that they're Rastafari. So we can't take the freedoms we have now for granted. Prohibition looked like the cutting of one's locks, and we're still seeing that today. The beatings, and it also looked like murder. So I want to put that in context as we're talking about our defense and our anti-prohibition activity, that's what we were fighting against. Losing scholarships, children losing scholarships because of a spliff, where they could never finish their formal education and get loans and grants that they were entitled to. Getting kicked out of school, getting kicked out of the military, that is another way of revelation of what it looked like during the period of Prohibition. That is what we were defending against. Okay. Now, in the defense, Empress Ima brings up a really good point with regards to relationship with other farmers and narrowing that distinction between agriculture, horticulture, and cannabis. Those who oppose us want us to see it as completely different things, but it's all one and the same. It's all one and the same. Defense also looked like these relationships with higher education institutions. And that was an important part of my trod in the defense, is speaking at universities. I would drive in my little Sentra to Kentucky State University, Florida A&M University, Florida International University, University of Maryland Eastern Shore, driving to all these different schools, taking my son with me so that we can introduce a cannabis conversation. So that integration with universities to legitimize is part of the defensive strategies, even to this day. As we're legalizing, specifically in Ghana, utilize your university relationships. And those university relationships will lead to either support through use of equipment, formation of cooperatives, creation of curriculum, or it will lead to research. So that's an important part of the anti-prohibition defensive strategy. Elimination of stigma by having ones who are in respected professions, so-called respected professions, step up as cannabis users, cannabis producers, cannabis enthusiasts, so we can dismantle the stigma around this plant. Going into the area of research, really being creative to allow cannabis to be seen from a research context. When you are growing cannabis on multiple related farms, to change that into a research context, it is called a trial. So when I grew hemp in Pennsylvania, Maryland, South Carolina, and Florida during the pandemic, how I positioned that is I had a 4-state trial of a particular set of genetics. So it takes the conversation from just growing or growing in collaboration to a multi-state trial. So what I'm expecting in Ghana from Rastafari community is for us to have multi-regional, multi-farm trials of particular genetics, and taking that to the government for funding, taking that to universities for funding. The key with that is you're going to have to measure your results. So you're going to have an expected outcome, which is your hypothesis. And then you're going to have to measure the results to see if your expected outcome is actually true. That is research. Don't overcomplicate the fact that we are researchers and always have been researchers as Rastafari, as ganja growers. Everything we do is research as long as we measure it and document it. When I was in Jamaica, when we were introducing CBD, and I had to register my client's product with the Ministry of Health to introduce it from a more accepted perspective, it became a research project. So we did case studies on pain. So I engaged with a University of Technology, I engaged with a physician, and the physician took his pain management patients, introduced CBD to them, comparing it to those that did not have it introduced to them. So you have a control, and then you have the experimental group of people or sample of people or population. Those are research words for what we're already doing. You make a cream and then or a tincture and you give it to somebody and say, how was it? There's a way to do that where it's considered research. That is part of our defense strategy. Engaging with our physicians, our Black physicians, engaging with our universities, and start coming up with these research projects. One of my research projects was what happens when I grow oregano and hemp next to each other? Will the health benefits and the viral properties of oregano oil or oregano transmit to benefit in addition to the viral properties of hemp, of medicinal hemp? And that was my project. That is how I became the one of the research farms for the University of Florida. So research is an important part of our defensive strategy. And we still have that same relationship with my farm in Florida, where we're a research farm with them. We're under their authorization, their DEA certification and everything. And they give us genetics and we test the genetics, and we're a research farmer. And we did that. I think we did a lavender trial as well, which is a common trial. They've done that in Israel and all around the world, lavender and hemp grown together. So what are our indigenous herbs that we can put into a trial with our cannabis as we're getting these licenses, or in our application for these licenses? When you're putting in your application, try to be distinct and position it as some type of trial, some type of case study, some type of research, which will increase your chances of being selected in this application process. And it also legitimizes what we do and what we have already done. So research is an important part of these relationships with farmers, these relationships with our physicians, and the research that we do as a result. It's an important part of our defensive strategy with regards to our use of our holy sacrament for the healing and wellness as the healing of the nations. We can say on an application it's the healing of the nations, or we can say I'd like to do a multi genetic trial, or I'd like to do a multi-farm trial and things like that. So those are things that have been very helpful for me as I've moved from state to state, that I want to impart to you. What Empress Imad spoke about as far as the farmers, now she's at a conference. When in 2017, I started going to Black farmers conferences to educate. I was the first to speak at Tuskegee Black Farmers Conference about cannabis. That was when it was the 125th anniversary of that conference. I was the first speaker. The Professional Agricultural Workers Conference that Tuskegee University has, I've spoke year after year about hemp and cannabis at that conference. So we no longer, to Empress Imad's point, have to be in hiding. Our defensive strategy has shifted and changed as these conversations change. Now, the other defensive strategy is about advocacy and how do we speak up for ourselves in a way that minimizes the harm that we bring or the wrong type of attention being brought to us in this space. So I know I saw Ross Oswald was on earlier. I'd like him as a great advocate, especially with his work in Ghana. I'd like him to speak a little bit about, if he's still with us, the advocacy part of our defensive strategy in the Rastafari approach to prohibition. Ross Oswald, are you able to unmute? Ross Oswald? Okay, if he's not available, then I'd like to turn it back to Ross Kwasi so that he can talk about legal defense and the Rastafari legal collective that he has put together in his wisdom that approaches not only our treaty position, our criminal justice reform position and posture, but also isolated criminal justice issues as they come up, and being really proactive and progressive with regards to cannabis legalization. Brother Kwasi, are you able to unmute to speak to those things? The legal defense?
Yes, greetings. I want to preface this part by saying that we do have a nonprofit organization, the Haile Selassie Foundation for Law and Society, which was established many, many years ago and has undergone many different phases. Right now, we are really coming out of a phase of dormancy just because of the demands of different ones in their private practices. Ghana family would be very familiar with one of our founding members, which is Empress Marina Blake, who is back and forth between New York and Ghana. And I think she might be in Ghana now, currently the wife of Jabi, who is a pillar, also in the Ghana Rastafari community as an elder. So Empress Marina, myself, the Chasmach George, Rose, and Ras Miguel Long out of Jamaica. We had others like Sister Sandra Alcott before she passed away. And these are all licensed Rastafari attorneys. Initially, we came together to assist the Almanchan process in Jamaica and other, there was just a plethora of issues that were confronting Rastafari in Jamaica and globally. We are in the process of reconstituting the entity. The entity is still a legal entity. It's still, on the books, functioning, giving thanks for the Chasmas George in Baltimore, who has maintained the legal status. And I did see where we are planning to do an outreach. There are many more attorneys, Rastafari attorneys now than when we started that we have knowledge about. Sister Scheril is one of them. And big up Queen Mother Moses, who I see on the line, who, always spoke highly of Sister Scheril and tried to make that connection without it was made. But we also have Raskisate in Dominica, Sister Sheba in the UK. There are a few other Rastafari attorneys that have now become. So we will be putting out a call to these Rastafari attorneys around the world. There is still a lot of work to be done. The challenge that we will still continue to face, though, is the resources. To litigate can be very costly. I know what we tried to initially do was, more strategic planning. We did memos and on different issues, intervened, wrote some letters as well. But I think we need to have a more robust legal defense fund kind of situation that's well funded. That would allow our attorneys, if we need to send an attorney to a region or we need to file a case somewhere, which has happened in Jamaica through RAGA. We have to talk about RAGA. Attorney Marcus Goff, who was one of our founding members as well, has been having a very high success rate representing ganja growers in Jamaica. Most recently, I think over 200 pounds of ganja was returned to a farmer that was seized by police, and they had to return that ganja. So the attorneys have been active in their different realms, but we are coming to the moment now where that reconstitution is coming and being able to deploy. And again, this speaks to our need to leverage our global assets, because locally we don't have the economic strength to implement some of the programs that we need. We're still not very strong locally economically. However, if we leverage globally the pockets of workforce that we have globally, and this has been my passion, is how do we identify, because every region you go to, there are 10, 20 people maybe doing the majority of the work. So how do we network those 10, 20 or more across the region in an economic way so that we can fund some of the activity that needs to happen on our behalf to jumpstart this effort. So yes, we do have legal assets there, but I also want us to think about how do we fund, because a lot of people just think you stick the lawyers on them and it's done, not knowing that other communities fund their lawyers and their litigation. And, it's very costly, very expensive. So we need to put that into consideration as we strategize. But every society knows you do not go to war without economics and litigation. When you're talking about litigation, advocacy is a form of warfare, whether it's defensive or offensive. And the same way, I need to prepare our legal war chest and start to put aside resources so that we can fight this fight, because there will be a lot of fights to fight on the continent, as we roll out our ganja policy. In Jamaica, what has worked for them is that the farmers, help to fund some of the costs, through RAGA, which is the organization on the ground that advocates on behalf of the farmers, which is a committee of the RMO. So RAGA is the ganja, has become the ganja committee of the RMO. And that has been, I think, the most effective kind of positioning, where the farmers contribute to, at a minimum, transportation and filing costs and the different costs there. I still don't think the attorney is being paid. He's volunteering his time, but it's a start. But we have to get to the level where we have a legal defense fund and confident knowing that we do have attorneys that can do the work. Give thanks.
Yeah, give thanks. That's perfect. That's where we are. We've evolved as Rastafari. We're organizing and centralizing by profession. Ultimately, we should have an association of our nurses, of Rastafari nurses all around the world. We should have an association of our Rastafari accountants all around the world. We should have an association of our Rastafari physicians all around the world. We should have an association of our Rastafari elected officials all around the world. That's the direction we're going into as we go into, which is the third and final phase that I'm going to speak about, is going back into the offensive. So I started out saying we started on the offensive with the spread of Rastafari, the spreading of our genetics and seeds around the world, the spreading of the concept of this is a holy sacrament and having that reverence, but also using it as a profit center for Rastafari by these sophisticated trade routes. Then we went into the defensive phase where we spoke about what are our tools that we can use with and have used to defend against the persecution and defend against the elimination of us having our rightful place in this industry. Now, what I like to refer to as the golden era of cannabis legalization, where we're seeing more and more markets come on. We're going to talk about being in the offensive again. And the offensive is, yes, a continuation of the advocacy, because advocacy is that tapestry that weaves throughout all three phases, and is as important now as it has been during Prohibition. Where with the legal defense being strengthened, more Rastafari attorneys across the country, South Africa, Ghana, Jamaica, across the U.S., the U.K., we're coming together as mentioned by Brother Kwasi. But then the next phase, which we've tended to, the next aspect of it, which we've backed away from or shied away from, and even looking at the Ethiopian World Federation Constitution with regards to, how we engage with government, is there's a tension there. But government relations is a part of this offensive strategy. Knowing how funds from our community will be utilized at a municipal level, at a state or parish or regional level, at a federal level, is very, very important. Influencing and introducing the rule makers to the Rastafari soldiers, and theologians and intellectuals, and our farmers, is critically important for us to have our rightful share, but expand on the resources that are available to fuel this growth and progress that we're about to experience in the Rastafari movement. So government relations is fantastic. I meet at the municipal, I meet in New York City, I meet in different cities across the United States. I attend international conferences, like I was there in Ghana for the diaspora conference, engaging with all from the president all the way down to other elected officials. Very important work, and we have to be present, because that's where we can find not only the strategies and the funding for us to take care of our future generations, identify the plans that will cause our annihilation, so that we can evangelize to dismiss those things, but also making sure that there's an imprint of our values in the world that's being created for the future. I believe that Ross Oswald is maybe able to unmute at this time and speak a little bit about the advocacy and the government relations strategies that he's engaged in Ghana. And also, Daddy Vasco's done a great job as well, along with other members of the Rastafari Council of Ghana. But I'll start with Ross Oswald, and I'd like us to, now that we're talking about this last phase of being on the offensive as Rastafari, as a progressive movement, okay? I'll take questions and then we'll close. I'll acquiesce to our chair as far as how he wants to handle those things, but I know we've heard a lot of great insights today, and I want to make sure we have an opportunity for questions to be answered before I have to transition locations for my next meeting. So Russ Oswald, can we talk about that advocacy, government relations continuum, and how it impacts, how important it is to Rastafari? Blessed love.
Yeah, give thanks and praise Rastafari. Yes, I would just like to say give thanks, Empress, for facilitating this presentation. Greet everyone from different parts of the world who are on this Zoom at this moment. I would just like to say that in the beginning, when I came on about 30 minutes before the program, when the program got started. And the sentiment I was getting is that Rastafari brethren is feeling that they are left behind. And we should never have that kind of thought or idea that we are left behind, because we have never been at the forefront of capitalism. We have never been on the forefront of imperialism. We have never been at the forefront of this rapacious capitalist institution that is trying to take over the food system and the medicinal system, so on and so forth. So it's not time for us now to start think that we have to equate ourselves with them. We have to stand by the liberty that we have established as Rastafari. That is what brought us where we are. And that is what's going to take us where we need to go. Capitalism is not sustainable. It is a system that is dying gradually because of its political, economic, and social philosophy. So we don't want to equate ourselves with a system like that. And once we get that in our minds plain and clear, we'll continue, just like Ras Kwesi said, we'll stay on the ital tradition path and to ensure that we keep the food, the medicine, and the ganja together, just like it was in Pinnacle, and just like it is now in so many places. I am impressed by what I saw from Ross Crossdale in the sense that they were able to make all these different products out of the ganja, even though the system had it illegal at the time. And even within that illegal system, we were able to come to this point where there's a legal regime in some parts of the United States. So we just have to keep doing it that way. We are fully experienced in terms of fighting the system from behind the scene. And we should continue with that tradition and ignore the part that is talking about equating with Babylon. We don't need to equate with Babylon. Okay, as far as the advocacy is concerned, I think we need to look at the advocacy now from the standpoint of reparations. Reparations is a very popular sentiment right now throughout the world, right? And it's gaining a lot of momentum. And if anyone else needs reparations more than Rastafari, show them to me. What we have gone through, what we have been through, especially knowing that we were the ones originally who were standing on repatriation and reparations. We need to continue in that same vein and look at the advocacy from that perspective, especially here in Ghana where the government is on that trajectory of talking about reparations. The Rastafari should seek a dialogue with the government where reparation is concerned and the issue of the cannabis and the issue of prohibition. We need to find ourselves in a position where in all these spaces where there are policies being enacted, the Rastafari community must have representative there. Recently, the Chamber of Commerce, the Cannabis Chamber of Commerce, along with NACOB, Narcotic Control Unit, came out and outdoor the legalization or the pricing of the cannabis. And there was not one Rastafari there in that meeting. And the only reason why that happened is because we were not advocating for it. We have to fight for our rights. We cannot look at Babylon and say, oh, you didn't include us, you didn't invite us. No. All these spaces, you have to fight for the spaces to be there so that the voice of Rastafari can be there and the voice of Rastafari will be represented. It is very important because, as we all know, that we suffer the most in the history of this plant. And we continue to suffer the most in the same way because the legacy of those who are benefiting from that legacy, they are the same ones today who are here today at the forefront of the industry in terms of the economic aspect of it. But we are not here to compete on that level. When Pinnacle got introduced to the community, it was about the community. It was about the community of Rastafari and the surrounding community, and we need to continue on that path. Eventually, because of the fact that we are dealing with the herb from a holistic standpoint, and now today people are talking about holistic lifestyle, etc. Our market is there. Our people are there. So we need not to worry about trying to be on that same platform as capitalism, because as I said, capitalism is not sustainable. The movement in Ghana need to change in terms of the Rastafari advocacy from the standpoint of identifying key areas where the masses are concentrated and utilize this plant where education can be in those spaces. You have a place like Nima, where there's a whole lot of Rastas in that community, whole lot of ghetto suffering people who are being penalized because of their status and the fact that they are in strong relations with the plant from generations coming up. Cannabis has been a part of this culture for generations and generations and generations. The elders here, they don't even look at it like how we look at it, because to them it is normal, it is natural. They use it for so many different medicines. So it is important for we to recognize that and integrate the traditional institution along with our advocacy to push forward for the rights that we are seeking. At Mampong, there is the Center for Plant Medicine. Build up a relationship with that institution, so that when the advocacy comes out, you will have individuals and institutions that are credible to be part of the advocacy. Rasquez said it plain and clear. You cannot fight this battle without a legal representation. And legal representation requires finances. So we have to keep looking in that direction, that it is very important to figure that out and make that become a reality. Because any advocacy you take up right now in this country or wherever is going to require finances. Because transportation to move people from here and there and media representation, so on and so forth, it requires a certain level of finances. So it's important to ensure that that aspect of it is done. At this stage where the industry is on, and we have been marginalized, and not just us, but general farmers have been marginalized because of the high cost for the license and the many barriers that are there. We need to look at establishing cooperatives as Rastafari, because cooperatives will give you that empowerment to engage the government, where they can even subsidize some of the necessary needs, economic and material needs that you need to actually engage in this industry. So it's about organization. We say organize and centralize, and cooperatives would be a very, very effective way. Granted, we know a lot of people are looking at it from a private sector standpoint and, I want to go in there and to make some big money, so on and so forth. But for us, that is not an issue, because we look at earth from a very sacred standpoint, and we have always made it in such a way that it becomes a livelihood for us regardless of what is happening. So we need to continue on that path. And the legacy that has been established by our elders from the past is what we need to utilize to move forward. Give thanks. You're mute. You're mute, Empress.
Oh, sorry, excuse me. Thank you so much. I said I love that perspective, very informative, very experienced, very helpful. When we're talking about this government relations, I want to be clear that having government relations strategies and relationships does not diminish our sovereignty, does not diminish our position as a government in our own right. It's just including the conversations with those who are holding the resources that we need to build, and making sure that we aren't on the table, that we are not being persecuted again by evangelizing our mission. So those are the things, minimizing harm is always at the forefront of everything that I take on from an advocate perspective. Daddy Basco, I would be remiss if I didn't ask if you had a perspective on government relations. I know you've done a great deal of work in that area for Rastafari. Daddy Basco, did you have anything to add on government relations or any of the other topics? Okay, I'm not hearing an audible response. So with that said, we've gone on this journey from offensive to defensive, back to offensive in this current legalization age. Rastafari has persevered throughout it all. And this is really our opportunity to evolve and be very progressive in leadership with regards to where this industry goes and how we can acquire these resources for our through reparations and through our commercializations like pinnacle hubs around the world so that we can include it in our repatriation strategy and our building of Africa strategy. Uh, Ross Daddy Bosco said he'll come in later. That's fine. I'd like to return it to our chair, Ross Kofi, for him to facilitate the Q&A. Also, I just want to thank the Rastafari Council of Ghana for just being excellent hosts and always welcoming me and my perspective in these dialogues as one African people, as one Rastafari, and as followers of His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie I. So, Ross Kofi, at this time, I'll hand over to you and I'll be able to answer a few questions if you like.
Rastafari.
Rastafari.
Yes, that's a lot. We've had a lot, knowledge shared, experiences as well. We heard from several of our elders, including Rasta Swad, our very own Rasta Swad, who has been leading several advocacy works here in Ghana. We appreciate what you've shared so far. I trust others have comments and questions that they want to share. So at this stage, we invite ones and ones to come in with their questions and answers. But before anybody else comes in, Empress, due to the fact that we are in a period where Rastafari mark Coral Garden massacre and its relations, would you say that situation was it relates to some of the issues that Rastafari face that relates to ganja and also in abandoning the cannabis prohibition, like the way forward to prevent similar situation? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And yeah, thank you for that redirection and correction with regards to not mentioning Coral Gardens with regards to the defensive period for Rastafari, because that was such a heinous crime, a horrendous violation of human rights. And, I was on the dark call, Diasporic African Rastafari Congress called, not this Friday, but the Friday before, and it was quite the conversation because of the land restoration that took place in the past couple weeks from the Jamaican government to Rastafari to make amends for that incident. And we were talking about the fact, or the dark leadership was talking about the fact that it's not just Coral Gardens, there's other areas, and they went back to the original letter that was published in I think the Jamaican Observer, which kind of kicked off the conversation about the need for reparative justice with regards to Coral Gardens. So, the letter specifically spoke of Coral Gardens, which is why it's been narrowly focused, this restorative justice efforts and setting up the Coral Gardens Benevolent Society have been focused on that particular area, that particular geography in Jamaica. But this is a conversation that the harm was done across Jamaica for that particular time, where there was a call for the a governmental call for the persecutions of Rastafari people. There was discussion about was the UK complicit as well in that calling for persecution of Rastafari, even though they weren't actually the framers of the letter requesting this type of persecution. So it's an important part of our history. It's a devastating, heartbreaking part of our history. We believe this is a starting point with regards to restorative justice for Rastafari that were persecuted in Jamaica, but it's also an example of what's possible when we don't bury our history, but we elevate our history to the point that we can repair the harm that was done and also hold accountable those who've acted not in good faith and in an oppressive, destructive manner to the people that they're supposed to serve.
Yes, give thanks and praise.
And blessed love. Thank you for bringing that up. That's definitely something that I had in mind to discuss during the defensive phase discussion. Thank you so much.
Yes, Empress. So please, anyone with a comment or question?
Yes, my lord, give thanks.
Give
Selassie,
thanks.
I want to ask a question.
Go through.
Yeah, with regard to reparative justice and the UN accepting slave trade as the gravest crime against humanity, most of our communities are being attached with this level of Europeanization of the mind that brought the end of like persecution against cannabis users in most of the African community. Going forward, how is this going to be impacting, especially the Rastafari community, regard to when reparative justice need to be considered and the way forward with cannabis? Because some of us feel it's a law that mostly has been implemented by the governmental Europeanization of the mind of the people. So is it too early to agitate for that as the Rastafari community, or what is the way forward? That is what I want to know regard to reparative justice and changing of some of the laws against Black community persecution.
Well, thank you, Boba Selassie. You know, I love you like cook food, so it's always good to hear your voice. My brother in the movement. So good to have your perspective on here. With regards to the question of is it too early? It's not too early. It's never too early to get involved. So there's a number of reparations related conversations happening. There's also areas for alignment where the Rastafari Council can play an important role with resolving some of these questions. So there's, the question of, when we're talking about reparations, is reparations due only to those who were kidnapped and abducted from Africa, or is there a reparations conversation for what was taken from Africa, so that those in the continent should receive reparations as well as those who were taken abroad into the diaspora? That's something that tension, that conversation needs to be had as one Africa. I think Rastafari is a good starting place for it, to ensure that we are moving together and not that division is not planted to keep us and delay the restorative justice that we are due. Rastafari needs to be involved through government relations. The Ethiopian World Federation Incorporated, we are developing currently as an IEC a repatriations and restitution strategy, which I have mentioned on my prior call. I believe definitely with Ross Daddy Bosco, as far as once that's finalized, I'd love to have his eyes on it and have the Rastafari councils around the world sign off on it. I've also had the conversation with the UNIA. This past week, CARICOM had a media event, and I went on as the president of the Ethiopian World Federation. I do consider myself to be the press because I do disperse information to our government. So it was a press conference, and I participated, and I shared with them what we're doing as the Ethiopian World Federation Incorporated, and brought up some issues that are important to Rastafari with regards to, for example, the cost for repatriation, the cost of citizenship to come back home after we were stolen, and things like that. So again, Rastafari is very essential to those conversations happening in CARICOM, those conversations happening at the AU, those conversations happening in all the governments that colonize the African continent, and then in leadership amongst Pan-African people, because we've always been in leadership among Pan-African people with regards to this reparations conversation, with regards to this repatriation conversation, regards to the restitution conversation. So we must stay involved. It's a lot to wrap our arms around because it hasn't been a centralized conversation. There's the Durban 100 conversation as well, where they were at the forefront of it. So bringing that all together, I do think the Ethiopian World Federation Incorporated has an important role to play, but we're not all Rastafari. So as a cross section of our membership, which is Rastafari, that's one perspective. And then we have a responsibility to represent the other perspectives as well. But do know that the Rastafari perspective is a prioritized perspective with whatever restorative justice reparations strategy that will be taken and documented by the Ethiopian World Federation Incorporated. So it's never too late. You need to be wherever this conversation is taking place because you are a constituent, and we should be in leadership because this is one thing that we know very well. We're not talking about other people's experiences with regards to these harms. We have lived the harms. So instead of having other people talk about in respect to talk about our harm as a subsection of a greater harm, we need to be present saying, this is my harm. And I want you to understand what prohibition felt like, what this persecution based on our non-mutable characteristics of, the crown that we wear as locks, the color of our skin, because, the vast majority of us are melanated people. And then the mutable characteristic which we choose, which are the colors we wear, the red, the green, the gold, that we wear proudly, but has been used to identify leading to persecution. So to your question, which is a great question, Brother Boba Selassie, we are the conversation. It's not like is it too early to have the conversation? We literally are the conversation when we talk about restorative justice, harm that was done from oppression, colonization, and of course, persecution.
Give thanks, Empress.
Blessed
Yes,
life.
please, any other question?
And I see Empress Queen Mother Moses spoke about the Global Run, which I love the Global Run concept. I love it, the fact that it's something that we do in collaborations with the Rastafari councils as well as EWF. I love that it's a demonstration of how we can wear different hats proudly at the same time. So you don't have to choose. I don't have to be Team Rastafari or Team EWF. I am Team Black People of the World. And I'm Team Rastafari at the same time as Team Rastafari Council. So I think the Global Run for me is a breath of fresh air, as the perfect demonstration of, there's no conflict with you being proudly a Pan-Africanist and a Rastafari and, and a member of EWF and doing great work and doing progressive work as a community. So give thanks, Empress, Queen Mother Moses, and Rasa Bib, and Rastadi Basto, and others who have been involved from the inception.
Yes. So, still on comments and questions. Does anybody have a question or a comment to make?
Yes, I
give thanks. Come in, Daddy.
Greetings.
Greetings.
So I'd like to give thanks for
Greetings.
This insightful conversation. I think Moses, was it the second cannabis conference during COVID that Lawyer Scheril presented?
Yes, my lord.
Yeah, and I think it's also a great prelude to the 5th National Cannabis Conference taking place on 20th of this month. From the conversations, you realize that there are aspirations that need to be met, and there's a lot of work to do. For example, when Baba Azu had mentioned about reparations for INI in Ghana with regards to the cannabis hemp conversation, it's something somebody asked me the other day, that Rasta, if you people talk about this thing, we now Parliament agree they can make business. Don't you think government forgive you people some dispensation, some waiver on these thousands of dollars per hectare where they say they go charge people. And I believe after conference or at the conference, although the conference is looking more at prohibition, I want to believe that with this window in the whole cannabis conversation that Ghana's opened, we need to find a way to, what you call it, Empress Scheril mentioned, there's ways we can participate in this present conversation either through the research route or the various what you call it opportunities that she and other what you call it speakers have mentioned, particularly Brother Crossdale, his tinctures and things. See already people they do ganja oil and things, and so even with this 0.3% that will be done, I'm sure that if brethren and brethren exchange knowledge appropriately, we can create some opportunities for NI people. So I give thanks, and like I said, this is a brilliant prelude to the Fifth National Cannabis Conference, and we look forward to growing beyond where we are right now to realize the aspirations of our people. Give thanks and give thanks, Sister Scheril and Brother Kwesi Bonsu and all the previous speakers. Rastafari love.
Rastafari
Yes, we
love,
love it.
Daddy Bosco.
Yes, we love it. I would like to make another contribution when I listen to Daddy Bosco presentation. It reminds me that if we are seeking an opportunity to let our voice be heard here in Ghana where the cannabis is concerned and where the issue of reparation is concerned, I think we need to sit with the lawyers and work out the strategy and the position as regards to how can we intervene from a reparation standpoint. Once that is formulated, we should join the case of the farmer in the north who have taken the government to court for all the barriers that they have put up against the small farmers and the oppressed people, including the fee of $45,000. We need to seek to join that case, and that case will give us an opportunity to add our reparations perspective alongside with what she has presented so far. And that will encourage other organizations to join that case as well. So they will have quite a few stakeholders addressing the same issues from different perspectives. Then the thing will become much bigger and will prepare that platform for reparations.
I think that's great. And to Ross Classie's point, that's the power that you have when you have a legal defense fund. You can engage. You don't have to hesitate. You can engage your attorneys right away and get some action towards and don't miss these opportunities. We have to be ready. Yeah, there's a saying: if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. So we need to stay ready with regards to it. Cannabis production is an important part of building that treasury for Rastafari. It always has been, and it always will be because it is ours, and it's something we revere. We don't approach it, as you said, from a capitalistic perspective. This is our holy sacrament, but it gives just like we put the effort in with regards to cultivating it and producing it with love. It returns that love back to us, and part of that is how we're able to commercialize it so that we can fund our legal strategies, our expansion strategies, our cooperatives, and other efforts. So I love that. Thank you so much. I guess I can take one more question before I leave, but that doesn't mean the meeting has to end. I just have to change locations for my next meeting.
Yes, any more questions or comments?
Rastafari, Emperor Haile Selassie the First.
Haile Selassie.
Yes,
I listened very carefully and I wrote a summary prayer, so I could just say that now if you want.
Thank you, Chaplainess. Really appreciate it. I'm going to acquiesce to our chair with regards to that and the timing. Blessed love. Chair Kofi?
Yes, please do.
Okay, thank you. My name is Chaplainess Saiko, and I've really enjoyed listening to this reasoning today. Earlier, when you asked me to do the opening prayer, I literally had just returned from church and taken a nap and got some rest. And the night before, I was working on the NNC's banners for Groundation. And in the last NNC meeting, you all have inspired me to share that I was asked to look at the repatriation plan because many years ago, 20 years ago, I did some very basic architectural drawings and sketching. So we're going to really centralize ourselves here in the UK and the NNC. And we give thanks to hear that others are doing likewise, love-wise. Selassie. Besame Ab, we world, we Memphis Caduce. Let me put my camera on. Yes, I. So Besame Ab, we world, we Memphis Caduce, Ahadu Amlak. Christo to Nestwall. Christ has risen. Burget to Nestwall. Truly his teachings of love and defending the beneficial ways of I Rastafari liberty are victorious. Heavenly Father, Lord of all creation, I thank the Most High for gathering I together today in the season of Tinsei, Fasika. Just as Christ overcame the grave and brought new life, we pray for the same resurrecting power of cannabis to be restored globally for the healing of our minds, goodies, spirits, and investment prosperity. As we reflect on the holy traditions of the Orthodox Church and Rastafari, we remember the sacred lighting of the candle, how a single flame from the Holy Sepulchre shatters the darkness of the tomb. We see the same symbolism in the lighting of the herb, as the fire transforms a blessed plant into a sacrament for the healing of the nations. May the incense of today's meditation ignite a light within I. Just as the candle represents the presence of the Holy Spirit, let the healing flame burn away our infirmities and illuminate our path toward wholeness, so that we become a sea of light, holy knowledge, and nurturing action to collectively secure future generations. I thank Kadamawi, Emperor Haile Selassie, for the gift of sharing ganja and the replanting of all the seed-bearing fruits of the earth. You are the light of the world, and everything I do is in the unwavering power of your glorious name, Emperor Haile Selassie I. I acknowledge His Imperial Majesty as the head planter and modern-day defender of the faith and also of cannabis, I indigenous heritage. I heartily appreciate our Ethiopian World Federation Incorporated International President, Empress Scheril Murray Esquire, for her leadership on this cannabis issue. And I also give thanks for all the elders who testified with expertise today. To them and all the platform listeners, more love and light. Abitu, with gratitude, we ask that your wise mind continue to guide I as we work to resurrect the healing reality of cannabis and help I to free the herb from all illegitimate prohibition, that it may be used for the true relief of suffering, the calming of the spirit, and the strengthening of our goodies, aka the living temples of the Holy Spirit. Jah willing, may the peace of Fasika stay within I works. May the healing of the nations stay resolute in our intentions, and may this work bring physical and financial wholeness to those in need. We commit our plans and our trade routes to your hands. And I have total confidence in Tulaku Mary and Imei's ultimate victory of correcting all injustice against the Black peoples of the world. In Einity, let the light of truth reign and dwell eternally. Amen. Rastafari, Haile Selassie first, Empress Menace.
Rastafari, Sila, that was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much.
Well, your words are so beautiful. Your words are so beautiful. So it really just inspired my words. And then last night at the church, one of the ladies said, "Oh, the priest is here, get a blessing." So I guess this is it. And also on the way being driven to church, because my name is Ghanaian, my son's name is Ghanaian. I was given Ghanaian. And I was thinking, as much as I was just about to really jump into the church, because I've been studying and researching, I always remember my time in Ghana. And also, I've been directed towards the Indians in Louisiana and New Orleans. So I got to study that first. Yeah. So yeah, it's all unity and oneness. So yes, blessed love. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, blessings and breakthrough on your trod, because you're well on your way and very powerful, mighty. Really appreciate love you. Chair, I'm turning back to you. to, I guess people can stay on in fellowship and
Yes,
I'll
give
let you direct.
thanks for
Yes, I.
yes,
Rascofia Santi, the royal one. Give thanks for this
yes. Queen
platform
Mother
and
Moses,
everything. Blessings, blessings,
Rastafari, blessed.
blessings. Yes, I and I are very, very proud to be a part of the collective, because that's what I and I, the Unity Collective. Bless up.
Give thanks. Happy to hear your voice, Queen Mother Moses. Yes. So the sister, the chaplainess blessed us with a summary. I was thinking once may have other comments before the closing prayer, or the Empress will give us her closing remarks. That's Empress Scheril. I don't know if once have any other comments before that. Empress, please comment.
My closing remarks are: we have everything we need. We just need to develop the oneness. If we will eliminate any distractions and disunity, disloyalty to this trod, we can achieve great things. So they're always going to throw distractions in our paths as far as taking us off course for the progress, especially when we're in pursuit of the resources. When we step up our actions towards developing our treasury and resources, that's when the opposition will step up their distractions. But we see through that now. We understand that. We overstand that. So when we see it, we just deflect. Back in the day, we used to say, "Oh, I'm like Teflon." Anything someone say, just washes off of me. And we have to be like Teflon. When it's something that's negative, that's not, upful, that isn't elevating us. If it's not higher vibration, we act like Teflon and we don't even acknowledge it because we stay in on this trod, regardless of the distraction. So I think we are who we need. We were equipped with everything that we need by the Almighty. So once we lean into that and really see each other as vessels and tools of the Almighty, that this person has this skill, it doesn't mean they're better than me or less than me, but this is the skill and tool we're going to use to accomplish the plans of His Imperial Majesty. That's when we're truly going to have the victory. So it's not a competitive thing, it's a unity thing. It's whatever resources I can contribute, I will. And that doesn't mean that I'm to contribute, I have to be less than whole. Jah wants us to be all successful, all whole. So those are my parting words. It's more about and us individually doing a character assessment of ourselves. The work that truly needs to be done at this point is our own self-reflection on what are we willing to do to make this happen? What are we willing to contribute from a time perspective, resource perspective, good spirits perspective, study perspective, maybe changing locations and moving perspectives, supporting other people, whether it's with their children, to make this happen. What are we willing to do? It's an individual work that needs to be done at this point, because the laws are changing. We've always had the genetics. We have the knowledge on how to do it. We're building the treasury. But individually, people need to take a really good look at themselves and say, what part of the work have I been called to do? And am I willing to do that? If you are not willing, it doesn't mean you're a bad person. But we have to be past the perpetration that I'm trying to do the work when you're not really trying to do the work, because that's a distraction. And it causes the discontent with people where they leave or they get, it starts these conflicts within our body because people feel like you're not who you say you are, or you're not serious, or it causes this whole controversy that is a distraction. So let's really focus on the self-reflection, self-assessment, internal work. And every time we come to the table with clean hearts, ready to do what we are called to do, what His Imperial Majesty told us to do, what the Almighty put on our spirits individually for us to do. And nobody can challenge that or argue with that, because that's your individual work. And we shouldn't judge other people's individual work. If let someone's no be a no without us judging them, because we don't know what's going on in the background, or we don't know if they're waiting for Ja to say it specifically to them in a certain way. That is their right. So we're going to keep coming to the table. We're going to eat together. We're going to work together. And when we come to the table, we're going to have already done this internal individualistic work, so that we're bringing our best selves forward. Give thanks, Rastafari.
Selassie. We give so much thanks, Empress Scheril, for the inspiration, the education, and everything that you shared with us here. Also give thanks to all ones and ones who joined us to share in various forms their knowledge and experience with us. We trust INA will continue to abandon cannabis prohibition. We'll continue to fight to make sure that INA will no longer be the target for incarceration for our knowledge, use, and sharing of cannabis. We'll reconvene next 2 weeks, the 26th of April, with another topic and another speaker. We hereby give thanks for you all, your presence. And we'll reconvene next 2 weeks. Rastafari.
When this, look here. I wonder when this
Blessed
will
love, Ras Kofi. Love you.
Blessed. So please, we'll meet again next 2 weeks.
Rastafari.
Read up again.
Last year.
Here, can read up again.
Give thanks. Give thanks.
Give thanks, family.
Yeah, give thanks, Rastafari.
Yes, and make sure the item taking the road to heaven on earth on the Lion Voice Network.
Yes,
Live,
Rasta.
it's live. It's live.
Yes,
All right.
Yes, I give thanks.
Love from Kenya. Give thanks, Ras from Kenya.
Well, give thanks for the hours that we got.
If thanks, Grandmother Moses. Happy to have you.
What did you say?
We're happy to have you today. We hope you join us in a subsequent week. And the right time, you have you lead one of such conversations.
I'm so sorry. I thought I was muted. Oh my God. Please, I apologize. I thought I was muted. I'm looking out into my backyard. I just weed up the ear can and see the weed them coming up again. You don't know the agriculture thing still. That's why I don't call the cannabis weed. Weed is something that you draw out of your garden and throw away. It don't have value. Stop calling cannabis weed. Serious, man. Serious. Anytime anybody say me don't deal with the weed, you know. A herb be deal with, because it is for the healing of the nation. You know? See them, sir. Blessings. Yes, sir. Blessings. Well, you know, I'm a member.
I need
If
cream
it's
mother.
Rastafari, if it's Pan-African, if it's black people, it's my business. You know, see? I am
Yes,
black
sir.
people business.
Yeah.
Give
Love,
thanks.
love,
And
love.
you all know that in a few more weeks, the birthday I share with Malcolm X, I'll be 70 years old.
Wow.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Yes. You know, like good wine, I
Rastafari
only get
bless,
better with
yeah.
age. Yeah, that's the way it goes. I'm
Yeah,
have to
man.
drop the sister in them, you know, because we have to step up, see. And we have to do the work. And the brethren them know, say, we know enough feminists in business that are white woman business. You understand? We are here for our African family. We are the womanists. We are woman. We stand up with our man. And a king man we want, see. So let us live up to the title, not
Yes,
true.
sir.
So want
Yeah,
it.
man.
Yeah, man. And just remember that age is just a
Love us.
number. You know, see it? Just
Yeah,
a number.
yeah,
Make we
man.
live it. You know,
Blanca,
see it?
Blanca,
All
Blanca,
right.
Blanca.
Selassie,
You look
Got the
so
Boston
young,
and the man
Empress.
can't
Long
have you
live,
see it.
long
Are we,
live.
man? I see him with upon it.
yeah,
I'm a
man. But
president.
no, you don't
Yes.
know. Yeah,
Yes.
man.
Long live, long
President
Rastafari.
live.
Scheril, everything. No, man, we have the right workers in place, you know, because we're on the circle. We never did leave the
Selassie,
circle. We just glad say we know the circle is unbroken. It have to be unbroken. You know, see it? Because everyone on the circle is a leader. You know, see it? See him, so. No one higher than no one. To whom much is given, much is required. That's why some people have to do more because much was given to them. But we give thanks to all of the blessings still. And even the workman will come at the last hour, still I will get him paid like everyone else. So, you know, see, we'll get the word. So, keep coming. Keep coming. We are the global run pack. The Rastafari Unity Nation Pan-African Collective for Unity in the Community with economic prosperity for the Africans at home and abroad. That has been missing. And that we are tapping into now. Not true? Blessings. Yeah.
Aye.
Cool.
Bless
All
us.
right. I'm off to the EWF meeting and I'm going to listen to that and full participate at Tacoma Village Judgment Yard. Can you know that is Sizzla Kalonji, 50 years old this, yeah, months or whole kind of activities. So preparation in place. He'll be honored by the school where him go and continue basic school and all of them kind of things. So we're on it. April Global Run Pack will be transmitted from a Coma Village Judgment Yard. Blessings. I bless.
Selassie. Wow. All right, family. So have a good night. Man, I go step off.
Give thanks. Blessing.
Love, love, love. Aye.